Welcome, writers, game masters, and creatives to the World Builders Tavern. Today is our second episode on the show The Three Body Problem, where we're going to be talking about episodes 5 to 8 of the series. Make sure to listen to our last episode if you haven't already for part 1, where we're talking about episodes 1 to 4. Spoilers for the whole show, because you can't really talk about the second half of the show without talking about the first half of the show, so that will probably come up, so be warned. With that, grab an ale or a mocktail and pull up a chair. I'm Emma, your friendly neighborhood barkeep, along with Allison.
Hi.
And Christiana.
Hello.
And we are so happy to have you here. Cheers.
Cheers.
So, just in case you are a wild person who has decided to listen to the second episode without listening to the first episode, and without watching the show, here is a description of what happens in the show. The basic premise is that science has stopped working on Earth.
What?
Impossible result. You can't interject during my description. I'll lose my flow. Impossible results are showing up on tests and scans. Scientists are being threatened into stopping their research, and the cause is an alien race. They are the Trisolarans, or the Santi-Ren, and they are headed to Earth to colonize it. Through intergalactic communication, including very strange and mysterious video games, these travelers attempt to intimidate human scientists into slowing down our rapid technological advancement to make Earth easier to conquer. Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think the real lesson here is land back. No more colonization.
Hashtag land back. Hashtag
100%.
free Palestine. And hashtag no. Ooh, no, I'm not going to use that hashtag because it's going to sound bad. I was going to say no aliens, but on Earth, that has a different context.
on a very
no Santi.
Very wild tangent. I recently learned that they renamed Settlers of Catan to just Catan because they didn't want it to be like a colonialist.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, that's kind of nice.
Language is important.
Yes.
So today we're talking about episodes 5 to 8 of the Netflix show. And yeah, let's just dive in. There is a ton, for as much as there was to talk about in the first half of the show, the second half of the show is even more dense. Like, here's where we get, like, we had the ramp up, and here's the, like, avalanche of everything happening.
So I love in our show notes that we have nanofibers WTF in capital letters. And
I believe I added that after watching episode 5.
I
who wants to summarize what the nanofibers are? Christiana, do you want to do the honors of telling us what the nanofibers were?
So they're nanofibers. They're fibers and they're nano. Super tiny, invisible, hella strong fibers that can like cut through anything, which I think nanofiber technology is actually like a thing.
Yeah,
in the world.
Yeah, nanofibers.
I think
are
it
very
is.
Important.
I don't think it's being used for
cutting
what this
things
show
in half.
used it for.
So in episode 5, they use the nanofibers to cut up a giant ship into pieces.
And
explode a bunch of people. A
ship filled with people, filled with men, women, and children.
And
they get sliced into ribbons in this minutes-long scene, and it's like the most effective weapon that I've ever seen. Like, our group chat went wild as we were watching this. We were like, what is happening here?
I don't know if this is for anyone who's listening who's a horror fan. Imagine the opening of Ghost Ship, but just like infinitely worse. There's like this scene where, like, because it is a true thing, like having been in the Navy, like the tension that's on some of these ropes are like a serious issue, right? Like if a rope snaps, like it's taking folks out. Like it's a pretty serious thing. But Ghost Ship does that and then just decapitates a whole bunch of people, and it's like a really cheesy horror film, and everyone's like, the opening of Ghost Ship. And I'm like, this times 1,000. Like it's so gory. I loved it.
And it's
I shouldn't, but I loved it.
Yeah, we were talking last time about like tension building, and I felt the tension building in this scene was like exquisite because you
can't even see it. You don't
can't see it, you
see the
just see the
weapon.
effects. Yeah, you just see,
Yeah.
and like the characters on the ship are like seeing things getting sliced in half as the
And
boat is like
running,
moving
yeah.
forward, and like running, and you know that there's nowhere they can run to because they're on a boat.
Yeah.
And there'll be like a person standing at one end of the hallway looking down the hallway at another person, and all of a sudden that person just like collapses into like 20 discs of meat because they've been sliced by all of these wires, and you just know it's coming. It's so
Yeah,
good.
I was thinking if you just jumped off the back of the boat, you'd be okay. But like they don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and they don't know how far down, like if they go into the water or something, or like they don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, if this ever happens, if you're ever on a boat with nanofibers, jump off the back.
Maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe.
If you can notice and you can run fast enough, because
I was even surprised when they started running away in the correct direction, because I'm like, people are just exploding. You have no idea what is happening here.
I don't think I would put it together. I would just be like,
yeah, like for all you know, there's just
exploding.
lasers coming out and like shooting them in half. Like you don't know that
like,
there's these like
I'd be like,
filaments.
It's the rapture.
Yeah,
I've done too much, and just
so when
I think I would just lie down and give up.
When I was watching this, I was just feeling Augie's emotions so much.
Yes, she's the inventor of these nanofibers.
She invented these nanofibers and let them be used. She's kind of strong-armed into doing this.
Yeah, but ultimately does decide to help.
And she has to watch, like, she's watching a video feed of this happen and just seeing like her love of science being turned into a murder weapon.
Yes, and they use it. I don't know if we said these are being deployed against. There's like a boat of the cult that wants to invite the aliens here, and they need to stop it because they're going to. I forget exactly what they were going to do. They were going to do something to get the aliens here. I
thought they just knew they were traveling through the Panama Canal, and they're like, let's take them while we got them.
And they knew this cult was helping the aliens, and we're like, we have to take them.
Yeah, I thought there was a more immediate need though, and like that's how they got her to help out. Is because like they were going to do something immediate that was going to help the aliens. I could be misunderstanding. Either way, yeah, they were helping the aliens, and they knew they needed to take them out, so they decided to just cut up the whole ship with these nano filaments.
Just what a reflection on like reality and scientists whose inventions get used for awful things.
It reminded me of Oppenheimer to some extent, right? Where like the whole "I am become death, destroyer of worlds," like the really intense. Not to like necessarily defend Oppenheimer. I'm not well educated on his entire history or anything like that, so I don't want to be like this poor guy or anything like that when I don't actually know. But the idea of like becoming a scientist because you're interested in physics and smart and all these things, and then have it be used as a weapon,
like just so often how it goes in the real world.
On a way lesser scale, it kind of reminds me of how AI technology is being used right now, because it's such an interesting and could be useful technology, but it's being used to like make art and do the fun parts of things. Like I wanted to wash my dishes and like, you know, do my taxes, like not do the fun stuff,
not do the art.
And it's also, there's lots of other issues, not just that it does art, but that it's like these companies are exploiting using artists' work without their permission and stuff like that. And so it just reminds me of like, it's just such interesting, neat, creative science being used for these awful things, and how this really happens in real life.
Well, we see it, and I think it's the last episode where she's instead using the nanofibers to clean drinking water for people in areas where they don't have clean drinking water.
Nice.
Right?
That's a great use for it.
Yeah, exactly. So she is so, and I think I like that about Augie as the character, and I think that's also really important to the storytelling, is she's so disturbed by this experience that she's like, never again. It's only going to be used for good. And you see that scene where she's kind of like screwing in the filter into the water pump and says like, no more disease, no more bacteria, any of these things. And uses it for good after the fact because she's so disturbed and so shook by how it was used first.
So on a writing advice point, when you have cool science in your book, I think it's important to think about what other applications it might have beyond the one you have planned for it.
You're stealing my question for
the
no episode,
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You can reiterate it.
I will.
Because often you will have this one idea, but if you expand on that and think about, this could also be used for X use. What if they started using it for that? Yeah.
I was looking up, so the reason that they had to cut the boat in a bunch of pieces is because there was a hard drive on it, and they needed the information on the hard drive, and they didn't want the hard drive to get destroyed.
The hard drive was conveniently not sliced.
I did think that. So apparently they were fine with it being sliced because it would have been sliced neat enough that they could still recover the data off of it.
Okay.
So they needed to A, kill everybody without giving anybody time to destroy the hard drive, and then B, they couldn't just shoot or explode the boat because the hard drive would get destroyed. They needed to find a way to kill everybody and get the hard drive. So that was why, which I think is good, because I think if you're going to have a character be complicit in mass murder, there needs to be a pretty good reason. If you're not just gonna completely hate this character, even though she was horrified, if it had just been we just don't like them, it would have been pretty hard to not just completely.
They need the hard drive, and the hard drive is full of things from Santi to help decode it, to help save the world.
So to save the world, her still idea. Absolutely horrifying, and raises. It's always I love sci-fi for its ability to raise moral questions about what is okay, what justifies other actions, and that sort of thing, which is really interesting. But really, really great world building. I've never seen a weapon like that.
So cool.
But so simple, but so effective and so horrifying.
Also, speaking of weapons, the Sophons, the supercomputers, that is such an interesting and terrifying concept.
Explain for our listener, what is it?
Okay, so the Santi sent 2 supercomputers to Earth, and they're the size of a molecule or something like that, but can expand. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't 100% fully understand the science behind it.
I don't think that this is actual science.
But they can expand and stuff like that, but they are also the ultimate spies. They can see and hear everything,
and they could be
will lead us, and they could be anywhere, which will lead us to one of the other points in the story. But once the Sophons are discovered, I think by Jin, when she's in the video game, she finally beats the video game, and they reveal everything.
They tell her,
and they tell her what these Sophons are, all this stuff, and then one of the Sophons wraps itself around the world, blocks everything out, and becomes a giant eyeball in the sky. And then they send a message to all the computers and all the screens and everything in the world that says, "You are bugs." And they could watch everything, they could hear everything, they could do anything. It's such a crazy, horrifying, but really cool concept for a story.
Well, and they are the reason why science has apparently gone.
They've been going into the colliders and messing up with it and things like that.
Oh, I thought they just impacted people's perception of what was happening. I think they
were actually screwing with the computers.
Oh,
I could be wrong, though. That's how I interpreted it.
I thought it was all related to why you can't see the assassin on the camera, because they just change your perception of what's actually happening. That's what I understood.
I feel like that would be counterintuitive to the wolf racers, because if they can't get into people's heads,
no, I don't. Yeah, that's true. I don't think they're actually getting into your heads, but they're just changing.
I thought they were messing with the technology on that.
I think they are messing with the technology because because I think that they actually wanted to set back our advancement. So I think they actually wanted to mess up.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. But I think that we've had a few of these things where we've been talking, and one of us is oh, maybe I misunderstood that. I think that's something to bear in mind when you're doing something that is very science heavy. Is that people will understand it to a bigger or lesser degree. So you just, but what you need, so you need to communicate what the effect is, right? Because we all understood the effect of the sophons is like they're messing with like our tests.
Everything.
The exact mechanism, you got to understand that people might, like if you're throwing so much info at people aren't going to get all of it. So you need to make sure that the effect is crystal clear. So even if people misunderstand the exact minutia, they'll still like get the story. So I think that that's really important to include.
And when we had Ada Hoffman on, was it this season or last season?
This season.
I think it was this season. To talk about their novel, The Outside. They completely made up all the science in that book, and it didn't really matter. The explanations, they sounded plausible to me, like using all the techno jargon, but that wasn't important. It was like what the science actually did that I cared about anyway. Maybe an actual scientist would be more interested if in something like The Martian that extrapolates on actual science. The Martian by Andy Weir in the movie, like he used actual science and then kind of extrapolated on it, and so I feel like, and I like both novels, so I'm happy either way, but maybe an actual scientist would be more intrigued by like something like The Martian.
But there is there's like a difference though, because like at a certain point, like if you're interested in like science and high level science and extrapolating, like you write and read a scientific paper. Like at the end of the day, if you're writing fiction and you're writing a novel, then as much as like, even because we talked about, I believe on After Hours, the quote from the author of The Three-Body Problem, which Ali so kindly put in our notes for us, which is that they did not begin writing for the love of literature, they did so for the love of science. But even if you're doing it because you want to showcase a science, they still chose to write fiction, and so it's still not all about the science. Like it's still about the story and what's happening and like the effects and that sort of thing. Which it
almost feels okay. So you know how like Lord of the Rings was written by Tolkien as a reason to explore all these languages he wrote and things like that? The Three-Body Problem feels to me the same thing, but with science. Right? Like this was a story that was written so that way the author could explore the science they understood and push it to its limits in ways that they maybe couldn't necessarily experiment on or do all these things. But they're like, what if this scientific concept that I understand was pushed to its limits? What if this thing happened? What if we take the science we know and then just throw it against the wall and see what sticks, kind of thing, of all the possibilities? And I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, at a certain level, like if you're not a scientist, high level science basically becomes technobabble, whether it's real or not. Like I don't understand like string theory. If you explain string theory to me, it's going to sound like sci-fi anyway. So like
even some like non-science things, NFTs. I've had people try and explain NFTs to me multiple times, and I'm like, this just feels like tech bro babble. Like it doesn't feel like anything.
Well, definitely. Even in The Martian, like the main character goes off on like, well, if I do this, then maybe I can do that, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm here for it because I'm invested in you and your survival.
So I mean, and like so at some point your sci-fi science is going to become technobabble, and whether that's at a lower level or a higher level will depend on like, I guess, your grasp of science and how far you can take it. But at some point it's going to be technobabble, and like that's the nature of fiction, and is great. We love a good technobabble.
But the sophons talk about the scariest enemy ever. And like the concept of the wall facers, I'm like, oh my god. I also
explain the wall facers for our listeners.
So since the sophons can see and hear everything kind of tangible, they can't go into people's minds though. So the UN decides, in the series it's 3 people, I believe in the books it's 4. But they decide 3 people are going to come up with a plan to kind of deal with and defeat the Santi, but it's going to exist entirely in their heads. They can't say anything. Anything the wall facers say goes. If a wall facer,
they like get infinite resources.
They have to,
no questions asked.
If a wall facer went up to someone and said, "Give me a peanut butter parfait from Dairy Queen," it's happening, right?
It's wild.
So one of the Oxford 5, Saul, is selected to be a wall facer. And he rejects it. He says, I'm not a wall facer. I don't want to be a wall facer. I'm not a wall facer. And everyone's like,
okay.
All right, Saul.
Yeah, and the security guy keeps following around. Like, he keeps being like, I'm not a wall facer. You don't have to follow me. He's like, okay. And
he's like, oh, yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
and
So that's
there's like
super
no
interesting.
reason. Like, he's like, because the other two people who are chosen are like incredibly qualified, like science people.
Yeah,
and he's not.
And Saul is qualified, but not to the same extent. Qualified as the other people.
He's a smart guy, but it's not like he's not involved in politics or science. Like, there's no reason. Like, he's an average.
Or
like,
we don't know what the reason is.
Yes.
We don't know why.
Yeah.
He is involved in science because he was Vera Yee's employee, student.
Yeah.
So we know he's involved in important science. That's kind of about it. We don't know a ton about Saul's research because a lot of his time as a character and in the show is spent with Will, who I really want to talk about. I love Will. But yeah, so like that whole idea is like kind of mind-blowing and like such a good antagonist. They can see everything, they can hear everything. It just is it's like fighting with God almost to that extent. So
the bit with Saul becoming a wall facer was such a nice little breath of humor in this very, very serious, very, very distressing show. The show really played it well that he was just like, no, I'm not I'm serious.
No,
I'm not a wall facer. And everyone's like, yeah, okay.
It did kind of break my immersion a little bit because it just seemed like such a wild plan. I'm like, first of all, why only 3? Like, why wouldn't you have like 1 million people working on this? Like, why?
To be fair, everything in this show has been really wild. Like the
I guess
VR headsets.
Yeah,
and just
but like, see, that was like alien tech. So I feel like that to me, I'm like, okay, it's alien tech. We don't have it, but the aliens do. But this, I'm just like, this just seems so wild. I'm like, ooh, we're really grasping at straws.
It fit. I felt like it fit personally.
Yeah.
The rest of the weird stuff in this.
I mean, it does show like the desperation of like you have to like, and it's not the only plan. Like they've got, which we'll talk. Like they have a bunch of different plans going on to try and save humanity. So it does make sense that like some of them are going to be like insane because you gotta try everything.
Well,
everything.
This one just seemed like one of the wilder ones to me. I'm just like, okay.
That's the thing with Saul too, where I'm like, I will suspend my disbelief. Like I will believe it because if I get the logic behind it. If I pretend every scientist, every well-known scientist was alive, if I had to pick a wall facer, I wouldn't pick Einstein and Copernicus and Newton. I wouldn't pick the people that people expect you to pick because that gives the Santi ideas. They're widely published.
Oh,
they're known. Their research is known. You pick someone who you know has the smarts, you know has the capability to do it, but their ideas aren't commonplace.
Yeah.
That's like, you know what I mean? So I kind of got it with Saul where I was like, yeah, that would probably be my approach too. I would pick a scientist that is really smart, knows what they're doing, but their theories and their research isn't widely known because that gives the enemy an advantage in that instance. So
maybe it's like my cynicism because I feel like it's too logical because I think about even like, you know, job interviews for basic positions that a lot of people could do and like the qualification level is so high. It's like when you see like master's degree required for entry level position, it's just like people don't pick the like people who could do the job but don't have the credentials to show on paper. Like that's not how bureaucracy works. Like they pick the people who look good on paper. That's how our like weird red tape works.
Worked for the government for a long time. I agree with that. Anytime there's a government conspiracy theory, I'm like,
yes,
I wish. Like, I don't work for the government.
If only we were so
I'm always
organized.
like, I wish. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I wish we had the funding in the organization to pull that off, but no, it's just a bunch of random folks. Yeah.
Shall we talk about, I know Christiana is dying too, shall we talk about Will and Will's storyline, which we get a bit of. So we get a bit of Will in the first half, which is basically we learn that he has cancer and he's been in love with his best friend for forever, but has never told her. And then in the second half, his like story really gets going.
Yeah.
And like suddenly the second half I really liked because I did find, as much as I had like an issue with the first episode and the questions it built up, I did find the payoff be really good. Like these last 4 episodes, everything comes together. All of the storylines like are very satisfying, and you're like, okay, I see why this was set up. I see why this thing. I see how they connect, which is very nice. And Will's story does get brought into the main goings on, which is so essentially one of the plans
this
that
is
they come
also
up with.
A ridiculous, even more ridiculous than the wall facers.
It is, yeah.
I almost feel like in sci-fi, I can believe the more ridiculous because I'm like, oh yeah, it's sci-fi, and then it's like the mundane ridiculous things. Like, I'm like, that's not how people function.
So they decide that they're going to put a disembodied head in a satellite.
Just a brain.
Oh right, just a brain, not even, and send it to them, assuming that
the
they could.
They need to intercept the Santi fleet so they can learn about them before they get to Earth.
Assuming
with the assumption
the Santi will take it on board and be able to regenerate Will's body around this brain. And I'm like, okay.
And like,
but we also let's go from the beginning.
Yes. So the first problem is the fleet is really far away and we need to learn about them. But by the time they get close enough that
because they'll be at Earth in 400 years.
Yeah, so we need to learn about them to save ourselves. However, they're so far away and our technology is not at the point where we could like get to them fast enough to like give us any useful information. So the first thing is like, okay, well, how do we get like a probe to them? And they come up with the idea, it's called the Staircase Project, where you essentially put a bunch of bombs at intervals in space, and you use the inertia from the bombs exploding to make this probe, go, and it goes really fast, which is, like, step 1. And then step 2 is, how do you get something that can, like, collect data and send it back? And that's where they then decide to, like, send a person, because the person will be able to... They think that the Santi will be interested in a person, and, like, take them into their ship.
But how are they going to get that information back? It makes no sense.
When the person presumably arrives with them in 400 years, they'll be able to stop off and say, because the person in charge, I agree, but the person in charge is also trying to cryogenically freeze themselves. So that way they'll be there by the time the Santi arrive.
Yeah.
So he can meet up with his like double agent and be like, yo, what's the scoop? Kind of thing.
Because originally they were just going to like send essentially a probe shooting past the fleet and just hope that in that like second it gathered enough information to like send it back. And then they were like, no, that's not going to be good enough. We need to send an actual person.
Well, I think that's what Jin thought they were doing, but they had this other plan all along.
Yes, the head general. The head general guy. I think all of the scientists thought that's what they were doing. I think it was just like the head general guy who was like,
knew what was actually going on. Anyway, it is absolutely bonkers.
It is wild.
This plan.
Yeah. And they did decide, originally and then they decided to go with Will because they're like, well, he's dying anyway. Wouldn't he rather die for a purpose? And we can extract his brain, because he has terminal cancer. We can extract his brain. And then, of course, Jin, who's the leader of this science, doesn't want to do it because Will's her like best friend. But he decides to
they're in love with each other.
Yes, although they've never said it.
They've never said it. So Will, this is my big rant about how much I love Will. Will has pancreatic cancer. He's hallucinating at one point where he kind of like comes to terms with the fact that Jin will never be his, and he like does this big thing, and he buys a star for her.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of the star. It's like 390X whatever
or something,
something like that. And then sends it to her anonymously because he doesn't want to put pressure on her, which is so.
Because she's also dating somebody else at the time.
She's dating the guy who was in charge of the nanofibers, chopping the ship up, which is another thing where I'm like, they're all that connected. But he buys her the star, she gets it, and then she already knows that they're trying to convince him to give up his brain because he's a smart scientist, physicist, whatever. And so she tries to talk him out of it. She gets the gift of the star anonymously and then rushes to his hospital room to find out it's already happened. The brain has been extracted.
Yeah.
And he's in the jar and he's on his way.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a bunch of nuclear bombs try to propel it with like a parachute basically to catch the radiation to propel it forward to faster than the speed of light. And it goes off course. So Will is now lost in space. And her boyfriend, who cut the ship up, and they have this like tense thing about like
with the nanofibers, in the previous
with the nanofibers and like who's worthy of dying, what are the ethics of the situation. He says, "Oh, you really loved him." And she says, "I do love him. He's still alive."
Yeah.
I burst into tears. I was like, "Oh my God, Jen. Will, you have to survive somehow in the next season."
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, obviously he's going to, right?
In the books, he does, as far as I understand.
I'm assuming they will, because again, we kind of talked about like it has to have a purpose. There would
what was the point of all of that if he's just gone?
I did look up for clarification some of the staircase brain stuff. So one thing was because originally they were going to send like a cryogenically frozen human, and then they realized that they couldn't because it was going to be too heavy and they wouldn't get to the faster than light. So that's why they decided to go with the brain. And then basically they just want the Yuan-Ti because they thought, or the San-Ti, sorry, they thought that they'd be interested in it, take it on board, and then basically be like a wall facer aboard their ship who could like mess things up. And like, so again, it's like all of these plans are absolutely wild and like such a slim chance of working. But that is kind of realistic of like we're so desperate, we're gonna throw anything at the wall and see what hits, which is interesting and not usually what you see in like these kinds of movies. Normally there's like one very clear plan that's like this has to work, and this is like 8,000 unclear plans that are probably not going to work, which is very, I think, helps build suspense. Like the more dire a situation is, the more tense the stakes are, right? Like the higher the stakes are, the tenser everything is.
I really liked all the little, there's a lot of very human moments in these episodes, like Will dying of cancer and talking with his friends and sending the star. And there's one scene where he's in his bed in the hospital and a couple of his family members come to visit him. I think it's like either his brother or his sister and their partner. And they are like, "Oh yeah, we haven't seen you in a long time, so sorry," or whatever. And then it turns out that they're just there to get his money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's so realistic to me that
it is.
Family members would do that. And just like these little, like, that doesn't really have anything to do with the plot, but just sort of tiny human moments.
Well, I think it gives the character motivation for the world building, right?
Yeah.
He is willing to put his brain in a jar and rocket it off into space via 100 nuclear bombs because he doesn't like the woman he's in love with is already dating someone else. She's not with him. His family only cares about getting the cottage and the money kind of thing. Like,
and he's dying.
And he's dying. He's
dying anyway. So
yeah, it is like, it does show that like everything that you put in the story should have some sort of impact, like even a small thing like that, which is like not hugely directed to the plot, but it informs like character motivation, is really important, and just makes
it gives you a bit of backstory on
why he made that decision and why he's at peace with it.
And maybe why he spent millions of dollars on a star, so like his family didn't get that money.
Well, so the thing that was also humorous about that is that, so we talked about earlier how in one of the earlier episodes Jack is murdered. He was incredibly wealthy, and when he dies he leaves all his money to Will, which his family doesn't know about. His sister comes to him specifically saying like, "Oh, the money that mom left you, we should get." And he's like, "Okay, you can have all the money that mom left me." And meanwhile, he has millions of dollars that he's not giving to them because they are jerks who just want money. So it is a little bit satisfying to be like, "Oh, if you'd been nicer, he might have left you all his money, but because you were a jerk, he's going to spend all his money on a star and you get a couple $1,000s." Yeah, so some of the people, like, we were talking last time about how, like, the Oxford Five were, like, more or less realistic, and, like, I do think that Saul and Will are maybe the less realistic inclusions, because, like, they do know science, but their point in the story is not as, like, to be scientific minds. It's like, oh, Will has cancer. That is kind of just, like, a random friend person in this
and
group.
Saul is just kind of there.
Yeah.
Which I assume is set up for maybe next season when he's going to be
a wall facer.
And I think that's very deliberate, because we're sort of
so.
That's why we're so shocked at the end when he becomes a wall facer. We're like, what? Saul? But he's hasn't really had anything to do with anything.
In his shoes.
Yeah.
Which I think is the big thing, right? Where Saul is equally as confused as we are.
Yeah.
We're all like, what the hell? Like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Which I think is like really, I love it. I don't know. I loved I'll agree with Emma. The first couple episodes, I was kind of like, okay. It's a lot of science. It's a lot of intense stuff. And then the back half of the season, I was like, I literally cried when Jin was like, I still love him. He's still alive. I was like, oh, what a story. Like, just immediately sold.
Yeah, for being based on a book that apparently had very little character development, that really is the crux of this show.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, they did a good job with that, which is really cool. And I think I think the first season definitely set up wanting to know what happens further on. Like, they did do a good job of, like, being engaging. It's like, okay, I want to watch season 2. I want to see what happens. How do all these insane schemes
I want to know about the wall facers. Like, I want to know what the wall facers are up to.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example of how to end a story if you have a sequel planned. So,
because it had the resolution to the main issue.
Yeah, the main
science
question,
isn't working.
Yep. Science isn't working. Happening. The video game, the VR headsets, the scientists dying. We get all the answers to those things, and it's these aliens coming. And now the question is, what are we going to do about the aliens?
Yeah,
and that's for the next.
And we have some hints.
Yeah,
we have some potential solutions.
We have all these bonkers plans set in place.
But are they going to work?
Yeah.
Which I think, if there's like, oh, maybe I'll say this for like our question thing. I was going to say if there's one thing to take away, but foreshadowing for last call. But with that, I think that's maybe a good time to hop over to Proprietor's Pick, where Allie has picked a second book that you may like if you like the Three-Body Problem.
You might also like Jump Knots by Hao Jingfang, and I'm sorry if I didn't say that name correctly. This is published in 2021, so a little bit older, but I thought it was very appropriate. Set in 2080, where the world is divided into two factions on the brink of war, it follows an archaeologist, astronomer, and military researcher who investigate a signal from space coming from an alien craft. They go into space to enter the ship and learn that almost everything they knew about human history has been incorrect. This story has Chinese history, myth, and philosophy, lots of scientific jargon and philosophizing. So again, if you are into that, it sounds like a book that you would really like.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down for that. I want to know.
The book version of Three-Body Problem is very Chinese. Like, I think all the main characters are Chinese and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is, again, I think by a Chinese author and also very based in Chinese history and mythology.
Ooh, so very cool.
Yeah.
So with that, we are at last call, where we clearly have had a lot of discussion about this. There's a lot to dive in. And I mean, I think we also only got partway through. Like, there's still so many things that you could think about and learn from this show. Highly recommend watching it if you're into sci-fi or world building, because it's really good at it. But Allie, do you want to kick us off with another question or concluding thought that you had looking at this series and how it can apply to world building?
I really liked how fear is a huge motivator for almost all of the characters, but they all act differently because everyone reacts to intense stress differently. So I think this is a problem I see in a lot of beginning writers, that they have all characters acting the same. And it comes from sort of just, well, how would I react to this thing, I'll write that, and then all your characters do the same thing. So it's really fun to think about, well, what about someone who reacts differently? Like this person might panic, this person might freeze, this person might like fight back. Like it's all about, you have different traumatic responses. So that can be fun research if you look into like types of trauma responses that could help. So yeah, I think the show did a really good job of that, and you can take inspiration for character motivations and how they react to
For sure.
stimuli.
Like, we think of flight and fight, but it's like
Yeah.
flight, fight,
Fight,
fawn, freeze.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And like even those individual like fight is going to look different from one character to the next.
Yeah.
So, like you could have a whole range of things.
And you also have like Will and Jin responding differently to how they love each other. So yeah, that's
Will is literally buying her a star.
I know.
So sweet.
Aww. Christiana, what about you? What's your concluding thought or question about world building in this show?
Okay, as alluded to earlier, every story needs a ship that's sliced like bread. But more importantly, how can you push that technology? How can you push that science? How can you bring it to a different conclusion, right? So I think a perfect example of this in the 3-body problem is, on the one hand, it's used to explode a bunch of people. And then on the other hand, it's used to filter clean drinking water. What can you do with both of those? On the other side, like, right? You can take technology or science or something that you've invented in your world that's meant to help people and use it to hurt people. On the flip side, you can use something that is created in your world to hurt people to help people, right? So how can you push it to its limits and kind of flip it on its head a little bit there?
And how does the inventor react to
exactly
yeah. If they're a part of the story, they might not be, but if they are,
yeah,
how do they feel about their invention
for sure
being used?
Like lightsabers would be really handy in blue collar jobs. Like that sounds silly, but like
it's like a
cutting through things easily, quickly. Lightsabers could be really revolutionary for manufacturing, but that's not how they're used. Right. So push it. See what you could do with it.
Yeah, and what I refrained from saying earlier is basically, we talked about it a bunch, but I really feel like the kind of biggest thing that I take away from this is that every time you answer a question, it should bring up another question.
Yes.
Like you should never be answering things partway through your story and have it just end there, because then you're kind of like cutting off the momentum of your story. So every time you learn something, it just brings more questions. Like kind of like a Hydra. Just think of it like every time your character puts up a Hydra head, 2 more heads are popping up.
Yes.
And then at the end, you kind of weave all of those things together. So, I just think that this show did a really good job of that, and I think that's something that's definitely applicable to like stories and world building. Every time your characters solve something in the world, have it lead to a new question. I think is just great. It makes for a really compelling world and a really compelling story. And with that, we are at closing time. We have talked a lot about the 3-body problem. This is an incredibly dense, rich show. So much fodder for discussion. Thank you so much for hanging out with us for 2 episodes to talk about it. We honestly could talk even more. We would love to stay longer, but these abandoned drinks are not going to pour themselves out. Thank you so much for joining us at the tavern. If you just can't bear the thought of waiting 2 whole weeks for another episode, you can join us over on Patreon, patreon.com/worldbuilderstavern, for access to our bonus after-hour shows where we keep talking about stuff. You can also connect with us on Twitter at WBTavernPod, on TikTok at WorldBuildersTavern, and on Discord where we are the World Builders Tavern. We hope to serve you here again soon, but until next time, scram!
Bye!
Get out of here.